Much for joining this evening, and welcome to the Tuesday, December 6th Louisville City Council meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order and ask City Clerk Muth for a roll call.
Mayor Stolzman?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Maloney?
Here.
Councilmember Lay? Councilmember Most?
Here.
Councilmember Dickinson?
Here.
Councilmember Fahey?
Here.
Councilmember Brown?
Here.
Councilmember Dickinson? Mayor Pro Tem Maloney?
Sure, that's fine. Just so you know, I was contacted just on text by Councilor Lay, and he is on his way.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Could I please get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Motion to approve the agenda.
I'm now nervous to say all your names. Thank you. Any discussion of the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, everyone. That takes us to our public comment period tonight for items that are not on the agenda or items that only appear on our consent agenda. If any members of the public care to comment, please raise your hand or fill out a sign-up card, and you'll find those out in the lobby, and let us know what you'd like to tell us. Our first sign-up card this evening is from Noah.
I just wanted to say thank you for all of the help with the Marshall fires. Obviously we lost our house, and it's just been really meaningful for like all of the work that you guys have all put in to like getting us back in our homes really quickly. And I just really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments. Any other members of the public care to comment tonight? Josh Cooperman.
Josh Cooperman. I live at 216 Griffith Street.
Josh, if you could just adjust the microphone for us, we can't quite hear you.
Okay. All right. Sorry. Josh Cooperman. I live at 216 Griffith Street. Just like to make a few brief comments about one item on the consent agenda, which is the contract for the wildfire hazard and risk assessment. So I fully support the city's decision to assess wildfire hazard and risk on its public lands. As noted in tonight's packet, I fully believe that this assessment should be consonant with the Open Space Department's goal of managing its properties in a manner consistent with good stewardship and sound ecological principles. If the city decides to move forward with wildfire hazard and risk management for its public lands, I really hope that this goal will also be well applied in that case. I also hope that the city will pair this assessment with appropriate development and adoption of wildland urban interface codes. Indeed, based on what I have learned thus far, and I am by no means an expert, wildland urban interface codes have been demonstrated to be one of the most effective means to prevent damage from wildfires. So in addition to the enactment of wildland urban interface codes, I would support the establishment of a community fund to pay for the implementation of such codes, preferentially for at-risk properties. And just to be transparent, my family's home does back onto the Lake Park open space. I have, albeit slowly, begun to fire harden our property in various ways, but I still have a bunch to do. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any other members of the public care to comment on items not on our agenda tonight? Seeing no others, that takes us to our consent agenda. Mayor Pro Tem Maloney.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to approve the consent agenda with the exception of item number B, which I would like to pull. Do I need to have an explanation at this point?
Nope, we have a very collegial process where if someone wants to talk about something on the regular agenda, we can.
Great.
Are folks okay with putting that at, I guess, ahead of the first business item this evening as item I, ahead of A, like lowercase Roman numeral I? Excellent. That's where we'll put it on the agenda. Any other discussion? So I will take what you said as a motion to approve the consent agenda, removing item B and placing it on the regular agenda.
That's what I meant.
Second?
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thanks, everyone. That takes us to council informational comments on pertinent items not on the agenda. I just want to make a comment that that our staff have coordinated to get some grazing animals, cows in particular, on our Davidson Mesa open space. They'll be helping us with regenerative soil practices and eating some of the fuel that's out there. And so Saturday at 10 a.m., you can come visit. As always, your dog has to be on a leash when it's on our Parks and Open Space system, but it's even this much more important with the animals that'll be out there. And you can go ahead and talk to Andy, who can tell you more about the soil regeneration and how having animals back on the land helps us to get carbon into the ground and mitigate fire, and really is a sound ecological practice. And so please join me out there on Saturday if you have interest in seeing that in action. Any other council comments? Councilmember Most.
Yeah, hi. Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to read something informationally. I had the privilege last week of doing the subcommittee evaluations for, oh, where did he go? There he is. Boards and commissions with Mayor Pro Tem Maloney. And given a conversation that we had at the last meeting around residency and what the rules were, I kind of wanted to do some research prior to going through that process. And I just wanted to read something about the rules in terms of actually meeting attendance and hybrid meetings, because I think this is really important, and it's something that came up in my research. And I believe this is something that we had sort of attempted to discuss on the agenda 2 weeks ago, but it didn't happen. And so I just want to read this in so that everybody is coming from the same place when we're thinking about the rules that we're operating under. We have a hybrid member tonight. And these were part of the instructions that were provided, particularly for the LSAB, Louisville Sustainability Advisory Board. But from my understanding, these are pertinent for all the boards, and this is basically how the council has been operating up to this point. So I'm just going to read from what the city clerk included in that package. So these are the instructions for all our boards and commissions. The city clerk's office has provided the following hybrid attendance option. Boards will continue to offer an electronic attendance option for the public. Staff should use appropriate technology for electronic meetings, the Chamber Zoom interface or OWL. If the technology fails for any reason, the in-person meeting may continue. If there is a quorum present, the chair will decide any items if any items need to be continued to a later meeting. If the board decides to allow it and the technology is available, board members may attend remotely if they are traveling or if illness prevents attendance. It should not be used regularly as a substitute for in-person attendance. A board may meet in a fully remote meeting only for the following reasons: weather prevents safe in-person meeting, COVID or other illness transmission rates dictate not meeting in person. The meeting is expected to last no longer than 15 minutes. And the electronic meeting has been properly noticed on the agenda. And I just want to make sure that we're all operating in the same space, particularly as part of the discussions around that came up around boards and commissions were based on attendance and reviewing people's attendance measures. So that's all.
Thank you. Any other council members have informational comments on pertinent items not on the agenda? All right, thank you so much. That takes us to our city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple items to update council on. First of all, I want to make sure you all know that we had a couple neighborhood meetings over the last 3 weeks or so related to the shots fired on McCaslin. Good attendance. I think the attendees really appreciated the information and the transparency we're providing into that process. And I feel like, from what I hear with our police department, that they are feeling good about the direction they're heading as far as getting some leads and hoping to find some resolution. Also, we've had some burglaries in town, a couple dispensaries, as well as a couple commercial businesses. They think those are unrelated, but they also tell me they are feeling good about some leads on both of those, or all four of those incidents as well. So they're doing their best to, catch the bad guys, which is what cops love to do. So I'm proud of the work they're doing there. And then the last thing, I do expect the DA's office to release the report on our officer-involved shooting within the next week or so. So I'm really looking forward to that resolution as well. So just some updates for you. Thank you.
Thank you, City Manager Durbin. That takes us to our regular business. And so our first item of regular business is lowercase I, Roman numeral I. And we will take up the award of the 2022 contract for wildfire hazard and risk assessment of Louisville Public Lands and Linker Technologies. Since it was on consent agenda, we don't normally have a staff presentation, so I'll turn it over to you, Mayor Pro Tem Maloney, to introduce the topic, and we can take debate, and we can turn to staff members for questions as needed.
Okay, well, I had really a question about what was there, and it really arose out of, we got a couple of emails from citizens, and they were people who lost their homes, so that certainly their perspective and their energy around this is a little higher than most. But really the question I have for staff, and it's a clarification of the contract or proposed contract for approval, is what work will be done for those, I guess, defining the adjacent properties to city properties, and will this report address that? I know that some of the reports that have been done at the state level have, and for this case, I was wondering, what information would come before us. I'm not really looking for an address by address assessment. I'm one of those people who lives very close to the 500-year floodplain, and after the 2013 flood, those were redrawn. And this is a time where we know they'll be looking at the wildfire assessment, and they'll have a better idea of that. So I'm really looking for, if we have some information that'll be part of this report that will inform us as a council about those adjacent properties.
City Manager Durbin.
Yeah, thank you. Great question. Adam Blackmore, our Parks Rec Open Space Director, is prepared to answer that question.
Thank you. Just a couple things to highlight relevant to that question in the contract before you in the packet tonight. I believe it's on page 27 under the deliverables. Item E, and if you'll bear with me, I'll just read through it and make sure that it answers some questions. We did meet with the consultant this afternoon to confirm that these questions were incorporated in their scope, and they feel confident that their final report can provide those outcomes. Recommendations for land management considerations to be incorporated into future planning efforts, such as city and county-wide community wildfire protection plans, wildland urban interface, otherwise known as WUI, municipal code updates, fire policy documents, evacuation plans, et cetera. There will also be a compiled list of community resources related to the WUI and grassland wildfire mitigation for public lands and private property homeowners. That's a fancy way of saying that they're going to take into consideration all of the WUI areas as well as the adjacent properties, aligning our open space and public land properties, and provide either resources or recommendations or risks associated with those particular areas. Also, the page before that, I would highlight item 1I with somewhat relevant items that are going to be delivered to us. It's not only public lands and our buildings, it's also any significant landscapes or landscape features on or connected to Louisville public lands that would affect wildfire behavior, such as public lands outside of city limits, agricultural lands, the stormwater irrigation ditches. And so in addition to the residential areas, it will also include, adjacent Boulder County open spaces and things of that nature. And that will all be included in the full report. There's a public open house as a part of this. There's a component where they do presentations to our advisory boards to answer questions and make sure the outcomes and the deliverables are in line with what we're looking for as a community. And there will be a requirement to discuss or at least have a report presented to this body. So all of that is incorporated. A good resource for those listening online or for city council members would be the work that Linker has done with the Colorado Water Conservation Board that showcases a number of ways that they've illustrated and mapped similarly to what they'll be doing for us in a final report.
Mayor Pro Tem Maloney.
How did you know my hand was up? Thank you, Director Blackmore. So with regard to E, the recommendation, the one thing that's missing in there for me is the risk assessment. I know it's in some of the other ones above, and it talks about city properties. as long as the intention is to do that risk assessment for adjacent properties, this answers my question. So,
Thank you, and I just want to add that the county is currently seeking a grant, and whether they get the grant or not, will be updating the Community Wildfire Protection Plan. And so I think we want to make sure that it incorporates what you're asking about, what Mr. Donner asked about, what Ms. Swanberger asked her about. But I think we want to make sure we're also not duplicating work on the various plans. So I'm in sync with what you're asking about, and so we'll need to participate in the various processes to make sure it gets taken care of at the appropriate levels. Councilmember Fahey?
Yeah, I want to also thank Adam for the wonderful report. My interpretation is that, for an example, I lived one house away from the mesa at the fire. So I'm thinking what you're saying is that you're not only going to assess the mesa itself, but also the irrigation ditch that's behind it and the fence that goes between the houses and the mesa, and perhaps even into the properties that actually border that fence between the houses and the mesa. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. It won't be as Mayor Pro Tem mentioned, it won't be a property-by-property assessment, but it would be an assessment of all of the adjoining areas that align and are adjacent to that public land.
Okay, and then is there any time constraint on this? I would like to see it done as quickly as possible. I understand partnering with the county, but if that's going to delay the assessment, I would rather get going now.
So I just want to clarify, I didn't indicate that this was a partnership with the county. There's a separate activity that we'll need to participate in. That's the Community Wildfire Protection Plan update that our staff are working on and participating in. So I wasn't indicating that we would slow this down through. So I apologize if I created confusion.
And I would just note real quick that we are aware of all of those various plans, and our consultant has been asked to align and to be involved in that. So they'll be informed when they give a final report.
Mayor Pro Tem Maloney? I will go that way in a second. I just wanted to make sure we had finished what you were thinking about.
I have no more questions, but I have a motion to make after his other comments.
Councilmember Most?
Yeah, I'm concerned, I understand the importance of looking at the interface. My concern is we had fire bombs dropping all over the community, and there were people who were not next to open space who had a wind-blown firebomb drop on their house and their house burned down. I mean, I'm sure all of us have now driven through the neighborhoods and it's just sporadic. So I have some concern that I think it's really important to look at that interface, but I think we need to look more broadly across the community in terms of what steps can be taken, particularly by homeowners, to harden their homes. Right, we talked about that some weeks back when we talked about extending, not having wooden fences, butt up to people's houses. And so I'm just wondering about that. And the other thing I'm wondering about is along those lines, and I think Josh Cooper mentioned this, that there are homeowners who can deal with whatever best practices we arrive at with the community. Within the community, there are homeowners who can't afford that, and I would like to see some public funds set aside to make sure that people who don't have the means will have the ability to do the kind of mitigation that's going to protect the entire community. And that may be beyond the scope of this particular project, but I want to make sure that we're thinking about that more broadly in terms of how we're going to address fire safety across the entire community.
Councilmember Lay?
Yeah, I had a question. I see what the contract term is and so forth, and I just may be missing this in the language of the contract, but when is the deliverable supposed to be provided? Is it the
June 23 at the latest.
Great, okay.
Yeah.
All right. And that, have at it.
Thanks, Councilmember Lay. And, it's hard because on each one of these things that's in front of us, we want it to do everything. And this is a really important piece along with many other pieces. So like on the mitigation programs, the community was very generous countywide and passed the wildfire ballot measure that can help us with mitigation. So I think that we're going to see a lot of these things come in a lot of different ways, and it'll just be important that we all continue to be in the conversation. And I think it's to address exactly the types of things, Councilmember Most, that you raised, that we want to make sure people have access to programs to protect property, whether they can afford it or not, and things like that. Because, you know, in this type of thing, if there's a weak link in the system, then it creates a problem for all. And so we want to make sure that we're bringing everybody along and that all the boats are rising. So thank you for pointing that out, and we'll just keep working on all that. And I just wouldn't want to put too much pressure on this one activity that is really important, and we need to do it in concert with all those other activities. So I keep looking at Megan Davis because she's sort of the keeper of all the activities and knows how they all tie together. So we'll keep working on it. Mayor Pro Tem Maloney.
Thank you, Mayor. I realize I was remiss in thanking staff for the work you did on this. You know, I had what I think was an important question, but it shouldn't get in the way of my thank you, and I think just thank you from the city council and the work and the fact that we're moving ahead as quickly as we can on this. It's very important. So I want to thank all the staff who were involved in that process. So with that, I'd like to make a motion to award 2022 contract for wildfire hazard and risk assessment of Louisville public lands to Linker Technologies LLC.
Second.
Thank you. Any other discussion on the motion? Could I please get a roll call vote on the motion?
Councilmember Brown?
Yes.
Councilmember Most?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Maloney?
Yes.
Councilmember Fahey?
Yes.
Mayor Stolzmann?
Yes.
Councilmember Lay?
Yes.
Councilmember Dickinson?
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. That takes us to our next item on the agenda this evening, which is ordinance number 1845, Series 2022, an ordinance amending Chapter 15.18.030 of the Louisville Municipal Code concerning amendments and deletions to the 2021 International Energy Conservation Code to include requirements for commercial energy usage intensity performance targets and restrictions of fossil fuel space and water heating equipment. This is our second reading and public hearing, and I will make a motion to continue it to 12/20/2022 in order to facilitate enough time for good posting so we can great public feedback. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion or question on the motion? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thanks, everyone. That takes us to resolution number 50, Series 2022, a resolution designating the city of Louisville as a B City USA affiliate. We'll have a staff presentation this evening. I'll turn it over to City Manager Durbin to introduce.
Thank you. Abby, our Parks and Rec, our Parks super, you caught me off guard. Our new Park Superintendent, you haven't had a chance to meet her.
I'll turn it over
yet.
to Adam Blackmore to introduce.
There we go, thank you.
I just want to welcome Abby. I know I believe it's your first council presentation, or it's slipping my mind, so I just wanted a big welcome, warm welcome from everyone. So that's why I was turning it over to someone else to introduce you. Warm welcome, and thank you so much for being with us.
We could not be happier to have Abby. She has been a tremendous addition to the team and appreciate the warm welcome.
And yes, this is my first council presentation. So first of all, thank you for inviting me here today. My name is Abby McNeil, and I joined the city this past September as the Park Superintendent, and I'm excited to bring to you an initiative that we're fully behind to become a Bee City USA, the second in the state of Colorado. Earlier this year, the Parks and Public Landscaping Advisory Board suggested that the city of Louisville apply to be a Bee City designation administered by the Zurich Society for Conservation of Invertebrates, basically anything that flies and crawls. After much analysis and consideration, staff determined that the city's current parks management practices, including the pesticide reduction along with the sustainability goals, have positioned us to actually qualify for this designation. The park staff has actively promoted land preservation and protection through creating healthy habitats using native plants. Plants that also promote pollination transactions are a fundamental building block of a healthy environment. Pollinator plantings have also been known to improve the appearance of neighborhoods, provide beneficial habitats, and enhance public spaces. The parks and open space teams have also been actively using pollinator plants and are committed to continuing to involve the plant palette that supports these plantings for all future installations and renovations. The park staff uses best management practice as a guiding principle to provide healthy turf grass spaces and ornamental plantings while promoting and protecting these pollinators. Through these practices, it aligns and supports the concept behind becoming a Bee City USA. And we will continue to champion the philosophies of the program to increase pollinators throughout our community and the future commitment to protecting our pollinators throughout the city. In your packet, you have the presentation and the communication of PPLAB's memo, an additional presentation that we've received multiple times through other agencies, as well as the initiated start of our parks, horticulture, and forestry plant palette that we will use and continue to evolve going forward that have a native and a pollinator focus for all future renovations. There is a yearly application fee of $200, new signage that will be promoted throughout the city. My Vanna White, okay?
Can we get stickers like that too?
We can make stickers. It is up to us to determine how we want to promote these, as well as there's additional fiscal support that might be needed to help market and further enhance programming and education. And that's back on PPLAB to help kind of evolve what those programs look like. So on behalf of the Parks and Public Landscaping Advisory Board, along with the Parks and Recreation Open Space Department, we are requesting that the City Council support the resolution to submit the application to become a Bee City USA.
Thank you so much for the presentation. Are there any members of the public that would care to comment on this agenda item tonight? Mr. Cooperman, sorry, the one card threw me off. I will try to remember on the next topic.
Josh Cooperman, I live at 216 Griffith Street. I'm strongly in favor of the City of Louisville becoming an affiliate of Bee City USA. My support, much less for the designation and much more for the commitment that the designation entails, stems from the importance of programs like Bee City USA. Virtually all of the world's living creatures, aside from humans, are in serious decline, primarily owing to humanity's actions. Bees, and more generally insects, and more generally still arthropods, are no exception, and yet arthropods are absolutely crucial elements of all of the world's food chains, including our own. We must take steps to protect the world's living creatures, and in doing so, to safeguard our own existence. Most of the world's nations have attempted to take such steps. About 10 years ago, at a meeting of the UN's Convention on Biological Diversity in Japan, parties to this convention put forth a set of targets. As this convention meets again starting tomorrow in Montreal, the world has completely failed to meet any of these targets. Since the US is not a party to the UN's Convention on Biological Diversity, it is especially important that communities within the US take steps to protect the world's living creatures. Louisville joining BUSA is one such step. Moreover, joining BUSA aligns with elements of the city's comprehensive plan and sustainability action plan. In fact, the latter specifically mentions protecting arthropods. I also see Louisville joining Bee City USA as one element in a grander plan to implement natural climate solutions in Louisville. So for these reasons, I asked you to approve this resolution. If it helps to convince you, I would like to note that I have volunteered to serve on the city's Bee City USA committee. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other members of the public care to comment on this topic tonight? Are you saying that there is a member of the public that wants to comment? All right, seeing none, we'll come over to council member comments and discussion. Councilmember Most.
I just want to give a shout out to the two young women who were here. I don't remember when that was. Was it over the summer? Does anyone remember? These two young women who gave us a presentation on bees and talked about how important bees were. And I just think I don't know if we can track them down and let them know we're doing this, but I think it's really great, especially when young people in our community reach out and make a case to do something, and there's an action that we take. I think it would be fantastic to do that. And if we're going to have any kind of a ceremony or any kind of thing that we're going to create, to initiate this program, it would be great to invite them too. I think that would be fabulous. So.
Delightful. Councilmember Brown?
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, I really appreciate this staff bringing this forward. I appreciate that, it's a small indication that we're moving in the right direction. As a former biologist, it really, I really love invertebrates. I know that sounds weird, but and they're really important to our ecosystem and to our communities. So I'm really happy to have this come before us and to support this.
Councilmember Fahey?
I'm going to add my thanks also. And I would like to point out that staff already met the requirements before we even started thinking about applying for this status. I think that's just a wonderful nod to what the staff has been doing in promoting healthy living for the city and for the world. And to find out that we're going to be the second city in the state to be a bee city makes me very proud. Thank you.
Any other discussion from folks or motions? Councilmember Lay?
I'll make a motion, but I wanted to say, to add my thanks to the folks who, I appreciate your bringing this forward. I'm proud of our city for being already in a position where it's a kind of a done deal. That $200 is going to be taxing for us, but the bees would come up with it if we didn't, I'm sure. One thing, I guess, I think we have already been, primed. I'm trying to find a way to work a pun in here, but I'm not going to be primed for this by another staff member, Kristen Dean, who, when she was in the planning department, brought an item forward about I think encouraging people to put bees on top of their commercial buildings. And I hope those kinds of things will continue to. And I don't think, Councilmember Brown, I thought you were just a hibernating biologist, not a former. But anyway, what I would offer is a motion. I'd move the passage of resolution number 50, series 2022, a resolution designating the city of Louisville as Bee City USA affiliate.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any other discussion on the motion? Mayor Pro Tem Maloney?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not going to repeat what my fellow counselor said. I agree with all the comments that were made. Abby, welcome to the city of Louisville. One of the things that occurred, two things occur to me, and one is in the summary of the staff report that you put together, and something that I didn't know about, us as the city using pollinator plants for the last 3 years. I wasn't aware of that. And the other thing I was going to say, the second piece is not only we could probably use education around this, but I think our community would be very interested in this. When people start doing landscaping, and we know a lot of people in town who are going to be doing landscaping, and doing things that support this, this is a real opportunity with your Vanna White thing that you were showing. So this would be a fun topic in one of the newsletters or something, and I'm certainly going to support this. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. All right, seeing no other discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you, everyone. The motion carries unanimously. And that takes us to our next agenda topic tonight, which is an update of our annual sustainability goals. I'll turn it over to Kayla for a presentation. It's always wonderful to see you.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council, and thank you for your time tonight. My name is Kayla Betzold, and I'm the Sustainability Coordinator with the city. I'm here tonight to provide you with a brief overview of the city's goals and guiding documents and share a bit about our progress and program highlights this year. This presentation is meant to be informational, and although we aren't seeking specific council direction on any items tonight, I am joined by Emily Hogan, our Assistant City Manager, and we will both be available for any questions that you have for us after the presentation. Additionally, I do want to mention that I will be returning in a few weeks with our Community Development Director to present the Commercial Energy Code Ordinance, and I will also be returning in early 2023 with McKinstry to provide you with an update on the internal decarbonization plans. So those items are not included in the scope of my presentation tonight. The guiding document for sustainability at the city is the Sustainability Action Plan, most recently updated in 2020. There are 7 categories, and each of those categories includes priority or high impact goals. The Sustainability Action Plan sets near and midterm goals for both the municipality and the community, and the plan is set to be updated in the 4th year, which would be 2024. The second set of goals sustainability staff use to guide work is the City Council adopted Clean Energy and Carbon Emission Reduction Goals, also known as the Climate Action Goals. These goals were adopted in 2019, and they set greenhouse gas reduction and carbon-free electricity goals for both the municipality and the community. These 4 goals are updated annually, and goal progress is shared on the Climate Action Dashboard page of the city website. It should be noted here that the municipality goals are set through 2025, whereas the community goals are set through 2030, so council may want to consider updating the municipal goals in the next few years. Additional reporting includes the key performance indicators and the Boulder County Matching Grant. The Boulder County Matching Grant funds come from the voter-approved climate tax in Boulder County and are used to supplement funding for the sustainability coordinator position. So reporting for this includes an update on the sustainability goals along with general program reporting. The city uses a variety of data sets when collecting data for annual progress reports. Data from Xcel Energy, Retrack, which is a waste reporting platform provided to us through Boulder County, and Energy Star Portfolio Manager provided to us from the Department of Energy, gives staff the necessary information to calculate annual metrics. I'd like to take a minute to explain how the Sustainability Department utilizes the most recent Louisville greenhouse gas inventory. Since this inventory was last published in 2018 using 2016 data, this inventory is not currently used as a standard for emission tracking, but rather as a reference for large sectors of emissions within our community. Much has changed with our utility provider in the last 5 years, so we will likely see emissions from electricity decrease when the next inventory is published. Boulder County is working with a consultant to update the inventory as we speak, and I have been involved in that process. So when the inventory is published, which will use 2021 data, I will be sure to share it with you all. And as you can see in the 2016 inventory, commercial and industrial buildings were the largest source of greenhouse gas emissions, followed by transportation and residential buildings. Although emissions in the electricity sector will likely decrease in the next inventory, it's likely that commercial buildings and transportation will remain the 2 largest sources of greenhouse gas emissions. Next, I'd like to share with you the progress that we've made to date on the Sustainability Action Plan and some program highlights that support this progress. The graph you see on this slide shows the percentages of goals throughout the plan that are completed, which is in blue, in progress, which is in red, in progress continuous, which means we're working on the goal, but it's something that will continue, such as educating community members about energy efficiency programs, which is shown in light green, and then the purple section on the graph, which represents the goals that still need to be addressed. So as you can see, there are 125 goals in total, and you can find more detailed information about the plan's progress in your packet tonight. I'm excited to share with you some program highlights that we have over the last year. So this year we partnered with Xcel Energy to cover the cost of home energy efficiency assessments for residents and conducted in-person outreach at the manufactured home community in town with both English and Spanish flyers to let the residents know about this no-cost program. Additionally, we did include solar-ready provisions in the 2021 Energy Code update. This year, we hosted a variety of sustainability events with our neighboring cities, including the Electrify Your Ride event in June and Ecotober this fall, which included electric vehicle and e-bike showcases. We also hosted the spring cleaning event, which included electronics, household hazardous waste, and lawn equipment recycling, and provided electric lawnmower incentives to residents that recycled gas mowers. So as you can see in the picture, quite a few lawnmowers. This year, we also continued working with Resource Central to provide water conservation programming to residents, including sprinkler assessments and gardens in a box. I collaborated with the Open Space Department to develop a drought and water conservation education program for residents, and we promoted Fresh Food Connect, which is a mobile app that connects local gardeners to those experiencing food insecurity in our community. Overall, we're making great progress on the Sustainability Action Plan, and I will continue to work with city departments, the Sustainability Advisory Board, and community partners to continue to make progress on goals that have not yet been addressed. Next, I'd like to speak to our community climate action goal progress. In 2021, community greenhouse gas emissions increased, but were still below the 2016 baseline. The city saw a decrease in commercial electric use in 2020, likely due to COVID-19, and this usage did rebound in 2021 when the businesses reopened. Reducing greenhouse gas emissions in the residential and commercial building sectors will require code updates to address new construction and will need to address energy efficiency and consumption in our existing building stock. Collaboration with partners such as Boulder County Energy Smart and PACE, along with state, federal, and utility funding, will be essential in reducing emissions in our existing building sectors. We are increasing the percentage of carbon-free electricity in Louisville through Xcel Energy's increasing renewable percentage, which is the amount of renewable energy Xcel is using to produce electricity or is claiming through renewable energy credits, plus the inclusion of Louisville's renewable percentage, which is the amount of electricity subscription programs and on-site solar that is installed in Louisville, in which the subscribers retain the renewable energy credits. So these two percentages together equaled 43% in 2021, and it should be noted that Xcel Energy is expected to deliver electricity from more than 80% renewable sources by 2030. In the municipal sector, we saw greenhouse gas emissions decrease slightly in 2021, but remain significantly higher than the 2016 baseline. The city's internal decarbonization plan development will be an important step, and the associated fleet, equipment, and building electrification initiatives will decrease emissions in the municipal sector. As of 2020, when the climate action goal reporting started, the city was receiving all of its electricity from carbon-free sources through on-site solar, solar gardens, and the utility subscription programs. In regards to the key performance indicators, we saw a decrease in water use per capita, a decrease in residential waste diversion rate, and an increase in the commercial diversion rate in 2021. All of these data sets were in comparison to 2020 metrics, and it's likely that the pandemic had an impact due to behavior changes and residents being at home in 2020 more than at work or at businesses. Key performance indicators will likely continue to see fluctuations due to the effects of the Marshall Fire. Now I'd like to provide you with a look at what we're planning for 2023. So in 2023, we will continue to fund the Regional Air Quality Council incentives for lawn equipment electrification, and I'll be working with regional partners to provide support to residents that are interested in energy efficiency and electrification at their homes. I have a limited amount of sustainability budget to pair with regional and state funds to incentivize this project, and we're also excited to begin the community transportation and building electrification plan through Xcel Energy. I've also been working with an internal staff team to discuss opportunities for sustainability progress within the municipality and in alignment with the internal goals of the Sustainability Action Plan. Using results from an employee survey, we'll create pilot programs that can create a framework for community-wide programs in the future. And as always, we'll continue to partner with surrounding communities to host sustainability events in 2023. I'm also working with regional partners to continue to support Marshall Fire recovery and to develop a renewable energy portfolio that details renewable energy options for both residents and business owners. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you for your time tonight, and I'm happy to hear any feedback you may have, and please let me know if there's any questions that I can answer.
Kayla, thank you so much. That was the best sustainability presentation that we've ever gotten as a council. So thank you. That's my feedback. I think it was fantastic and just very well presented and brought together for us. Thank you so much. I do have one question. The city of Boulder is likely to do the study, as you likely know, on banning gas-powered lawn equipment and leaf blowers. And council members have started to publicize that through their channels in City of Boulder. Have the regional sustainability directors been talking about this much? And do you think there's any opportunity there for us to learn lessons from the study that they're doing? And just sort of what are your thoughts on that program?
Yes, I have heard that there's mobilization in the City of Boulder on this topic. I do also know that it's a focus area of PACE in 2023. So Boulder County PACE is they're in the process of developing all their 2023 programs right now, kind of moving funds around to incentivize electrification both in the building sector and in the lawn equipment sector. So it's something that PACE will be funding. So I do think that there's opportunity to, look to both of those and take lessons learned. And City of Lafayette also did a municipal electrification pilot this year. So that's kind of what I was getting at with the municipal pilots that we have some funding for next year. I think it's a great way to, have a small scale project and then share information either with community members or, regional partners as with, what Lafayette is doing with us.
Great, thank you. Other questions from folks? Mayor Pro Tem Maloney?
Thank you, Mayor. And I agree, that was a terrific presentation. Thank you very much. And you presented a lot of information. And so for my understanding of some of it, on page 258 of our packet, you have the data sets. Let me just bring it up here. We have those two pie charts. And the one figure 21, which is the greenhouse emissions by source for the city of Louisville 2016. Something I've always wondered about, and maybe it's addressed farther down in a chart you have on page 261, but the part that's 50% electricity, is that net? So for example, many of us have solar panels. So is it net of the renewables that are generated in the city, that 50% that's in this chart?
So the 50% of the electricity, and you're talking the 2016 greenhouse gas inventory?
Yeah.
So that is the greenhouse gas emissions from the electricity that's used in the commercial and industrial and residential building sectors in 2016. Since Xcel Energy retains the RECs from most on-site solar that's installed in Louisville, I believe that the emissions associated with the electricity are accounting for Xcel's renewable percentage at that time.
Okay.
We have, so I went back and watched the council presentation back when this inventory was presented, I believe in 2018, and wrote down your comments and your feedback at the time. And so I've been working very closely with Boulder County and the consultant that's updating the inventory this time around to take into consideration all the council feedback that we heard in 2018, which I know there was some regarding the installed solar in the city. There also was some regarding the aviation fuel and how that is calculated, and just kind of being more clear, I think, in the inventory this time around where the data is coming from and what the data encompasses.
That's a great answer. I can't believe you went back to 2018, and it was probably the mayor and I making a lot of those comments at the time. The next question I have is on actually the next chart. On the ones that are not started, do we have a concern about those being completed in that time frame?
So as you can see on the next page, I break down each of the 7 categories and then kind of give you a picture of the percentages of those completed in progress, continuous, and not started. So we see our highest amount of not started goals in the waste and water sector. And I will say that I think collaboration between city departments is going to be essential in these. I know that we are, updating some city guiding documents in 2023, and so I think that in doing so, some of these goals can be addressed when we, potentially include sustainability more in kind of our visioning in other documents.
Yeah, I think the waste and the water is so dependent on what people's actions are at their home or at their commercial site. I think that'll be tougher for us to actually change that very much. Let me see. I had one more question. Actually, let me go a little farther. So on page 261, it was the chart you had for the progress for the climate action municipality. We actually, in the bottom chart there, in the municipal carbon-free electric, we should probably just leave off 2016 because we were doing things then. I don't know what the percentage was. But it wasn't 0.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and maybe the mayor knows exactly 47.2% or something along those lines. But anyway, we were doing things at that time, but it wasn't 100%. So that's just a little bit misleading. But terrific report. Thank you for your work on this. And it's jam-packed with information, something I really appreciate. Thank you.
Thank you for your feedback.
I see all the hands in the queue. Councilmember Lay?
Thank you, Mayor. I actually wanted to go to 262 of the packet, which is the key performance indicators on waste diversion. These were interesting statistics to me, and I just wanted to pick your brain about them.
Sure.
Because it looks like our, I don't know how generally the residential waste diversion compares to other similar communities, but I was, I'm disappointed, probably like you are, to see that there was a 9% decrease in residential waste diversion, and then a 9% increase in diversion over the same period in commercial. I'll get to that in a minute. The commercial piece was great, but I wonder if you had any thoughts about why that was. Somehow, clearly in 2020, we were really deep into the pandemic, but certainly 21 we were too. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So I had the same reaction when I did this analysis and this data came out. So I actually went back to the previous year and I pulled all of the same data from Retrack and I redid the calculations from 2020 to ensure that I was using the same methodology as was done in the previous year's reporting, even though I wasn't the coordinator at the time. And it did match the methodology, so I feel confident about these numbers. And I did also reach out to Boulder County staff to ask to pick their brain about it and to say, what are your thoughts on this? They feel confident that all waste haulers are reporting their data in Retrack. And so what I found when I dug in a little bit is that the city's contract hauler, so that would be single family residential, we only saw a 2% decrease in contract hauler numbers from 20 to 2021. Whereas outside of that, we saw quite a large increase in single family, just residential solid waste. And so this could be due to home and yard projects in 2021. And this is speculation, but with COVID stimulus checks coming in and people completing lawn and garden projects, that is the only thing that I could attribute it to. There was quite a few junk removal companies and things like that had quite high solid waste numbers, but because some companies provide full, curbside services and junk hauler removal, it would be very challenging to try to go through Retrack and cherry pick which haulers should be included in the numbers and shouldn't be included in the numbers. So that is what I would attribute the decrease in diversion for the residential side. It actually didn't have to do with the fact that multifamily was included. So multifamily had a higher diversion rate. Multifamily is included in residential diversion for our reporting purposes. Multifamily had a higher diversion rate than non-contract single family. So that's what I would attribute it to. I will say that on a regional level, I'm the Louisville representative on the Resource Conservation Advisory Board, and we are talking about regional C&D ordinances, so construction and demolition, and really thinking through policy that could, in the future, require more diversion for those home projects.
Yeah, I hope that as building increases in Louisville here, that at least to the extent that we're talking about residential, that we can, we find some way to increase that again, that waste diversion. And working with the haulers, obviously, might be one way to do it. And I don't know whether that, we've got a contract coming up, evaluation, and that may be something that we could we should put that on our, the RFP. At least that would be my suggestion to the experts who do that sort of thing, to try to get what their ideas are for helping to bump those numbers up. And I think it's great that the commercial diversion was up. You talked about support from PACE and Green Business Program, sort of incentivizing. Is that the idea? Is that the explanation? Or is there some other explanation, do you think, for the increase in diversion commercially?
You know, PACE does provide a lot. So through Boulder County funding, PACE is able to provide any business that reaches out to them with waste diversion, education, materials, resources, bins, signage, things like that. So, you know, through that program and through the Green Business Program, I think there's a lot of support out there for businesses. I don't think that I could necessarily correlate the increase in diversion to that, but I think that the support that PACE has been receiving and the increased support that PACE has been receiving because of the sustainability tax that was passed in Boulder County, we have seen, you know, just more funding and more support for businesses.
I think the last, maybe this is just an idea. Again, I'll leave it to your good judgment, and maybe working with Austin might be a good thing, but you know, at some point it might be worth putting a question on one of the surveys that goes out to businesses as to what they either have found helpful in encouraging them or would find helpful, either in terms of an incentive or pulling out some kind of obstacle. And the same thing potentially true with residential. I mean, I don't know there's any way to get these numbers up, but I know the waste amounts are just so incredible all over the place, and the more we can do to help that, I think is a good thing. So thanks.
Councilmember Fahey?
Well, thank you, Mayor. I won't repeat what everyone else has already said, but I will add my thanks. This is a wonderful, very comprehensive report. Thank you. I wanted to mention that I was on a call this morning where the CC4CA and SWEEP were doing a joint discussion about with the Electrification Coalition, and talking about the state will provide $30,000 to $40,000 grants. They think they're anticipating. They were anticipating a lot of things, but and then in addition, DOLA and Excel also give grants for electrification of cars and vehicles. This was all coming about because of the governor's new requirement or goal, I guess, to have, I think it was 60% of the new cars sold be electric. And they want to provide the electric charging stations for those vehicles. So I would really appreciate anything that we could do to provide charging stations or provide incentives or motivation for people to buy electric vehicles. Thank you.
Something I didn't directly mention in this presentation is that we have been working for the last year as a regional coalition on the Boulder County Regional Transportation Electrification Plan. And now we've published that plan and we've moved into the implementation stage. So we've broken into subcommittees and we're really focusing on all the different aspects of promoting transportation electrification and doing it on in a regional way so that we can be strategic about where we see charging currently, where the need is for charging, how do we evaluate that, and then how do we address and provide incentives to each different audience.
And the Electrification Coalition has just published today, they said, a local government playbook for how to decide what to do, how to do it, when to do it, all those things. So, thank you.
Thanks, Councilmember Fahey. Councilmember Most?
Yeah, hi. So I really appreciate the comments that my colleagues are making. And while I understand that this represents apparently really significant progress in terms of presenting information, and it's clear, Kayla, that your level of expertise and knowledge and the amount of information you've packed into this, and I really appreciate it. From my perspective, what I really would like to see so I could understand this is what we had planned tactically to get done and what we actually accomplished, right? When I'm looking at charts that say 28% of priority goals were completed. I want to know what that is. And I guess my perspective is I would like any member, any resident of our community to be able to look at this sort of information and understand exactly what their government is doing. And I think that this kind of information where it's kind of, the way that you've presented the statistics, especially for me, like, I don't know what we did. And I really want to know what we did, what we plan to do, what we did that we plan to do, what we didn't do that we plan to do, and why, why that is. And so for me, there's a lot of detail in here, and I think it's great, but I feel like what's missing is that sort of kind of higher level overview, particularly, so that I as a council member can understand what we were trying to accomplish this year and whether we accomplished it or not, because I can't, or last year or whatever, I can't tell from this. And that really, that we're providing that kind of accountability to our community. Because, we are stewards and we are doing all of these things. And I appreciate the perspective that you're taking in terms of looking at the emissions and looking at the water use and looking at those things, because in your world, that's how you see it, right? But from someone like myself who doesn't have that expertise, or, most of our constituents, it would be really nice if we can kind of break it down that way. And it was really interesting because when I first started reading the packet, one of the things that stuck out to me that made my brain spin was, you said the Sustainability Action Plan outlines goals referred to as strategies. And I'm like, what is that? And I'm like, that seems crazy. And then what I realized is they are strategies. They're not goals, right? And I would really like to see this broken down to the next level where we're taking those things that are goals, or that are strategies actually, like for it's broken down into the different sectors and different areas. And then we have the goals for the community, the municipality, and then we have these strategies. And what I guess I'd like to see underneath that is what the objectives, or the tactical objectives are, and what that looks like in terms of the landscape for accomplishing, using the strategies to accomplish an overarching goal. Now, maybe that's not something we've done in the past, and I'm not. I know you're relatively new, and again, I mean, your perspective and your level of expertise is really fantastic. And I would just, I guess, like to ask that going forward, if we can think about how to break this down so that it's easy for everyone in this, somebody with an 8th grade education to look at this and go and say, okay, here's this, the 12 things we were going to do in 2021, and here's the 8 that we did, and here's the 4 that we sort of did, and here's the ones that fell off the plate and why. Because from my perspective, that would give me a much easier way of understanding sort of where we're trying to go, how we're trying to get there, what we're doing, what we're not doing, and why. So
I just want to say, so the city council passed the sustainability plan ahead of Kayla coming on board, and I feel like she's taking steps to go in the direction you're saying, because it was not passed as a plan that says exactly what we'll do what year, and it's not prescriptive. It doesn't say what we'll do when. There's a lot of aspiration, and so I think this is a really good step toward, like, now it's breaking down, like, we had these things we want to do, here's how we're doing them. I think she's laying the framework to provide more of what you're talking about.
Right, and I'm not, that's why I'm saying, I don't, clearly from what you guys are saying, this is an improvement. So I just wanted to say that, like, I appreciate all this, and I appreciate your deep level of understanding, and, I hope in the future we can move towards that kind of sort of specificity. It'd be way easier for me to understand, and I'm sure for the people in our community who really care about this and want to know what we're doing.
It looks like Councilmember Lay has a reaction to this topic.
Yeah, I guess I wanted to point to the appendix in the report, because as far as I'm concerned, this does most of what you were just talking about. That's on, let's look, starts on roughly page 249 of the packet, and I think it talks about the strategic goals, and then the summary of revisions, which goes through the goals and objectives.
Those are goals.
Right.
I think the question to, like, what exactly is going to be accomplished in 2020 versus what direction are we trying to go? And I think the way that Kayla is bringing us so that we are more accountable to ourselves. If we want to accomplish things, we need to fund them, right? As a council, we need to put in the budget request. So I think she's helping us to frame it in a way so we can make the decisions we need to make. So I think we're all saying somewhat of the same thing. Assistant Manager Hogan.
Yes, thank you. I also, I think there's an opportunity here for communications and sustainability to work together. We put together a budget at a glance and a higher level overview for the strategic plan. I think we could probably do something similar for sustainability to make it more easily understood by by residents who don't have this in-depth knowledge. So that's something that we can work together to improve from a communications perspective.
Excellent. Councilmember Most? Were there other items?
Yeah, no, that's all. I just, and again, I appreciate you actually, like I said, when I first read the thing, I'm like, what is this? Because this is what I do for a living. So it's sort of, that's my perspective. It's like, oh, you're right. Those are not objectives, right? We need the objectives to sit underneath that stuff. And so just from what I read, I could see that you were trying to work within this structure. I just want to say, let's go to the next level and let's make that more, specific. And then we all know what we're talking about.
Thanks, Councilmember
Thanks.
Most. Councilmember Brown?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I appreciate that. And I do, I know that I would benefit from some additional specificity. I appreciate some of the charts that you have in the staff report about the percent completed, percent in progress. I think that's a really excellent kind of roll-up. But I do think that including in the future an actual itemization of which goals have been fall into each of those categories would be helpful. To me into understanding sort of how that's assessed and whatnot. So I really appreciate the work. It strikes me that just as an editorial comment that we've done a lot. We've got a long way to go. I really appreciate our plan. I think to Councilmember Most's point, it could be significantly more specific. I think we had conversations about it when we passed it that, I wanted it to be a little bit more specific, but, it is aspirational, so I appreciate that. I really hope that we can continue to work on all of these things and to really think about the things that we are completing or that are in progress that have the highest impact. And when I mean, for me, not all of these initiatives are created equal. Some of them have much larger impacts on, the climate crisis than others. And so, understanding the relative impact of the things that we've completed versus the things that we could complete, I think would help us as a council prioritize, to the mayor's point, about where we need to put funding and efforts into making sure that this plan comes to fruition. So again, thank you for your work on this. We are very well served by your expertise and your knowledge, and looking forward to continuing to work with you and the rest of my colleagues on this.
Councilmember Dickinson?
Thank you. Yeah, mostly just echo. I want to thank, Dennis and Chris and Ashley for, you guys were around in 2016 when we passed the Sustainability Action Plan. And I appreciate you guys being a part of that with your colleagues at the time. And then again, the renewable energy and carbon emission reduction goals, again, was before my time. And so I really appreciate you guys putting that out in front of staff. And it has, I think, clearly set a direction, a policy direction for staff to be following. And Kayla, I think you're crushing it, and it was a great report. And I appreciate both Heather Balzer and now Jeff Durbin for keeping this top of, not just top of mind, but top of budget, top of priorities, and that you're hearing a very unified council, and that these are things that are incredibly important to us. And yeah, I think when questions come back to the budget and how we spend our money and where we allocate our funds, we need to put our money where our mouth is in these things being priorities for us as a council. And I think we've been doing that. I haven't really seen any resistance to that among this group. And so really happy to see, some of the progress and a lot of the attention that we're putting towards it. And in general, just really happy with it. And then curious to see how post-COVID, post-pandemic numbers shape out in 2022, 2023, and what these trends are, because of course, like there's that one graph that goes down and back up, and over the 2-year period, it's down. Is that the trend, or are we trending back up, right? Are we trending down overall, or is this trend back up going to keep going up, and where are we actually headed? So excited to see the 2022 numbers finalized, but yeah, great work and great progress, and yeah, I hope that all this work continues, especially with a lot of the incentive programs that you've put in place. So thank you so much.
Any members of the public care to comment on this topic? Mr. Cooperman.
Josh Cooperman, I live at 216 Griffith Street. I'd actually like to make a few comments on council member questions. And so first, I'd just like a brief comment in response to Councilor DeLay's question. There's a very nice report from CoPerg. I think it's called The State of Recycling in Colorado or something like that from 2021. And it kind of ranks all the municipalities by their recycling rates and things like that, and has a bunch of information about how to improve recycling rates and things like that. So in particular, I think Louisville has a recycling rate in that report somewhere around 30%, whereas Boulder is about twice that. So there's certainly room for improvement. The mayor started off by asking a question about gas-powered landscaping equipment. I just wanted to add a little bit more information to that discussion. So first of all, LSAB, or at least a few LSAB members, are talking to the city of Boulder about their efforts. And we're hoping to sort of get some information from the consultant that they hired for those efforts. And I don't know if you would have seen it yet or not. Maybe Kayla knows. But LSAB has actually given a recommendation for the work plan in 2023 that we draft an ordinance that would ban leaf blowers, gas-powered leaf blowers, and phase out all gas-powered landscaping equipment over a few years in line with Boulder. And then the last comment I wanted to make was just following up on some of the discussion towards the end. I was just gonna, even before the comments, I was gonna say, it would be really nice if we could go to the Sustainability Action Plan and start to take out strategies or objectives that we think are the most impactful and actually make those binding commitments. I would love to see that. And then finally, I'd just like to say, as an LSAB member, I have really enjoyed working with Kayla since she came to the city.
Thank you. Any other members of the public care to comment? Seeing none, back to any other council final discussion. Councilmember Lay.
Thanks, Mr. Cooperman. That's it's always appreciated when somebody gives due thanks to staff, because they work really hard on this stuff, and I know Kayla's worked very hard. Appreciate the work that you're doing too. I think we all do. The one thing that I was going to suggest that builds off something, well, I was going to suggest it, and then Mr. Koopman maybe beat me to the punch, which is in some ways, I looked at the numbers of goals and KPIs and so forth, and we often start this way. We have a lot of different things that we're trying to measure, and I'm not going to pass judgment on whether those are all good or all not good, or, I mean, I think they're probably on the whole very good, but some of them may be things that aren't as helpful as others. There may be some goals that LSAB thinks, aren't as worth pursuing. And as Mr. Koopman said, there may be some that are high impact. We constantly have to make choices about priorities on council with the limited resources that we have. And we often will, and have for years, and I think appropriately, suggested to the advisory boards and commissions that they bear down and narrow as much as they can, feel they can, the goals and prioritize them for us as much as they can and point out the ones they really, really do appreciate. And the suggestions to council for the work plan, I think, are all great. this is something all of the boards and commissions can be doing. But I do, I see that the last revision was, for us was 2020. To the extent we need to be updating that again, I know it's staff bandwidth and it may not be something that we're going to have time to really load onto staff next year, but we always need to continue to evolve that document and those goals, and we've already got some suggestions about how to make sure we communicate that to the public too, because it really is important. And the victories are important too. We have a story to tell. There've been a lot of changes, a lot of really good changes that have happened, and we need to be continuing to communicate those well to the public in an easy to understand sort of way. So that's just my encouragement. Thanks.
Councilmember Most.
I just want to add to the list of gas-powered, we're talking about lawn equipment. I have an electric snow blower, and it's really an amazing work of wonder. So if we're going to make a list of things, let's talk about snow blowers too. It makes me so happy, I can't even tell you.
Thanks, Councilmember Most. And I will try to remember to email everyone Bob Yates from Boulder. He does a sort of monthly recap, and he talked all about the gas-powered lawn equipment in his this month, so I'll forward that to the group to just read what they're doing. I thought it was a nice summary. Other folks have comments on this one? Mayor Pro Tem Maloney.
Thank you. I think there's been some really great comments tonight, and thank you again for the work and all the staff and the board and so forth who participated in putting this together. Somebody who's been on council for 7 years, and over the last 6 years, this has been part of our discussion. I think through the discussions tonight, I think it's important, that we target those areas that have the greatest impact on reducing greenhouse gases. And, some of these things are important, but they may be less important. So when we start, one of the things that brought the numbers down was the waste diversion. But does that have the same impact as reducing the number of gas-powered snow blowers or leaf blowers or whatever it might be? And the answer is no. And so if we need to reduce down our focus, that's something I think we need to be open to hearing and funding. So, through our priorities, through our KPIs, whatever it might be, if we need a more targeted approach, I'm open to hearing that. Just because we approve this plan and it's this wide doesn't mean it has that much impact. Several of the items will have the majority of the impact, and we need to hear what those are, and we need to deal with that from a policy perspective. So it's what you've done is terrific, but if we can do a better job of focusing, I'm open to hearing that. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, and we'll give the final word to Kayla.
I would just like to say thank you for that feedback. I think, when I came into this role, I quickly recognized that there are a lot of strategies and objectives in the Sustainability Action Plan. And so that was something that and the climate action goals are, very ambitious as well. And so that's something, I spoke with City Manager's office about early on, and I'm thankful that, the direction that I've received seems to echo what you've all said tonight. And so my focus has been on evaluating where the largest impact can be realized, and looking to our 2023 priorities. I think we've kept that goal in mind as well. So I really appreciate your input and feedback. Thank you all.
Thank you. Excellent. And so with that, we will turn over to our city attorney's report.
Thank you, Mayor. I have no report this evening.
Thank you. Are there any council comments, committee reports, and identification of future agenda items? Councilmember Most?
Yeah, per my comments at the beginning of the meeting, I would, I think that we need to have a conversation about, and I know we tried to do this 2 weeks ago and it didn't quite work out, but to have a conversation about our rules about electronic attendance, and if we're going to be consistent with the guidelines that have been set out for the boards and commissions, or if we're going to have our own set of rules. But I think we need to do that.
Okay, are folks okay adding that to the agenda? Do you want to talk about that through the work planning process? How would folks like to handle this? Councilmember Lay.
I think we did decide not to deal with that the last time, and I think it's I think the suggestion was that we talk to people about the work plan. And if it goes on the work plan, if it's one of those things that the group thinks that we need to do a revision of the rules, there's a number of things in the rules that could use revising. So it may be that that's appropriate, but I think that it needs to get run against the other things that we've got on our plate, and we have a lot on our plate.
So just to remind everybody, we're having the work planning discussion on what date? Monday the 12th, so Monday night. And so we can talk about whether to include this on Monday night. Councilmember Most.
I just want to comment, I don't think we made a decision not to talk about it, Chris. I think it kind of got shut down, and it kind of got off topic, and we got very involved in talking about residency issues. And there was some background information that I certainly had no access to and had no idea what was going on. And I thought we were having a conversation about what rules we were going to have, and it descended into something else. And I think it's very unfortunate that that happened. But given the fact that different people sitting up here had different access to different information, I can't see that that can qualify as any kind of a meaningful conversation. So.
So this is a good point to remind everyone that Deputy City Manager Megan Davis is awaiting for everyone's work plan topics that they want to be added to the master document if you haven't sent them. I think since we are having this conversation Monday, I think we'll be able to figure out if it makes its way into the work plan, an advanced agenda, or if council has no interest. Are people okay with that? And okay, that looks like a lot of head nods. This time is absolutely for everyone to bring up things exactly like this to add. I just think because we have this great opportunity Monday night, we might be able to flesh it out through that process. Excellent. Other future agenda topics, Councilmember Fahey emailed a future agenda topic. I just want to make sure there's consensus on it tonight around discussing public art placement. Is there consensus from the council that we want to add that to a future agenda to discuss public art placement? I see head nodding from everyone. Just making sure there's consensus because no one of us controls the agenda. It looks like there's unanimous consensus to add that.
Yeah, we've added that to the January 10th.
I understand. Councilmember Fahey just can't do that alone. So
Actually, the rules.
it says the city council will add something.
If
It
any
doesn't say
member of
a
the
council
council
member.
asks.
I went back and read it, but that's fine. We have consensus that we all want to add it, so that feels really good. We're gonna act as a body. I think that's the best strategy, that we act as a body of people and not individuals. Yeah. Yep. Any other future agenda topics from folks? Not seeing any? All right, right on. Any council committee reports or other things folks need to address? Seeing none, we're adjourned. Thanks, everybody.